Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. It is a Thursday edition of the show, the last show of the week, and one of the last podcasts before the start of training camp, which, of course, begins on Wednesday. But before we get to that, there has been a ton of new information from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, a lot in the last 15 hours or so, I would say, where last night, right in the middle of the ESPYs, the Bucs signed veteran free agent tight end Kyle Rudolph. And then just hours later, in the next morning, a report came out from Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times that rookie tight end Cade Otton has been cleared to go for training camp. So we will talk all about that on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. And joined with me is also from pewterreport.com, Kasey Hudson. Kasey, we always know you are extremely busy, but how's life right now?
I'm waiting to have different answers. Last week, somebody was like, always on vacation. I'm like, bro, I'm never on vacation. I'm just always on the move, but I'm good. Life's good. Just be in case.
Just be in case. I like that. It might be a new mantra of the show. Like, all right.
The simplest version.
The simplest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get right into it, Kasey. Kyle Rudolph, we've obviously, we did a show in the past where we were talking about, potential tight ends that will, potentially join this team. Kyle Rudolph was one of them. We also talked about Eric Ebron and Jared Cook and Blake Jarwin, other players such as that. But it ended up being Kyle Rudolph. And so there's a lot of questions that we can get into. But one of them, of course, is just what his fit will be in this offense and where he kind of ranks on the depth chart. So I'll ask you first, Kasey, just what was your overall initial reaction when this move was made last night?
Honestly, when the tight end conversation started taking place, and like you said, we've all kind of dove into it quite a bit over the past few weeks. The reality of it is that it was heavily leaning towards Rudolph almost out of all the guys, if you really thought about it. I don't dislike the pick whatsoever. Like I said, it was more realistic. You're looking at another 6'6" target, 265 pounds. Now, 1 year younger than Gronk, 1/10 slower than Gronk. So no, he's not a Gronk caliber tight end, but as for price and size and stuff, he's a good option for the Bucs offense. And just to put into perspective, Kyle Rudolph has had maybe 2 pretty immaculate seasons in his entire 11-season career, if you will. Yeah. And he's never had a Tom Brady. So I'm not that person who's ever been like, everything revolves around Tom Brady. But the reality of it is that these athletes, when they come in, each player has said it on the Tampa Bay Bucs that you just kind of rise to another level. So am I excited to see what Tom Brady effect on Kyle Rudolph can be? Absolutely. The guy is 6'6", he's 265. He knows how to receive. He's decent at blocking. He's had 2 pretty amazing seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. He was very unproductive last season with the Giants, so I'm sure he's looking to kind of reinvent himself, and what better team and quarterback to do that with than the Bucs?
Absolutely. I do want to talk about his time with the Giants because as people listening and watching might know, I did grow up in New York. I grew up a Jets fan, though. I hated the Giants.
It's not obvious.
At least,
the Mets grow out every week.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, we cover the Bucs. We're watching Tampa Bay every single week, dialed in with multiple things. So, as awesome as that is, sometimes you don't always get to see literally everything else that's going on in the league. There's only so much time that you have in the week. But because of where I grew up, some of my buddies from back home are Giants fans. So as soon as the news came about today, I was talking to some of them, just getting their insight. They're watching them. So I do want to get to that at some point. But you did mention the quarterbacks that Kyle Rudolph has played with. I mean, no one pales in comparison to Tom Brady, but it's like his other best quarterback really was Kirk Cousins. So that's really saying a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I wasn't saying anything. I was just agreeing.
Oh, gotcha.
I got excited for some reason.
And there are multiple benefits of having Tom Brady. And one of them is the fact that people want to play with him. People want to, come in and see what it's like playing with one of the the greatest quarterback of all time, especially for a player such as Rudolph, who has had success in the league, but never made it to a Super Bowl. The Vikings, obviously, they've made a couple of playoff runs, but never really made too much noise going in there. And then goes to the Giants last season, and I don't even know how much of an indictment it was on Rudolph as it was just the entire New York Giants roster, because that just wasn't a good team, and they have to figure out their quarterback situation with Daniel Jones. So I think overall, it's good that they brought in a veteran tight end. I think they absolutely needed to do that just based on who they had on the roster right now. And I'm not expecting Rudolph to be, Gronk 2.0. That would be idiotic to say. But I do think that this will help him. Older people go to Florida anyway, but now you're going to Florida and you're playing with the greatest of all time. I think it could rejuvenate him a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be, third on the team in receiving yards and second on the team in touchdowns, but I think he could provide a little bit to this team that maybe we haven't seen from Rudolph over the past couple of years because of everyone around him.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Tampa clearly has a spark. There's just something, maybe it's the fact that they can breathe a little easier. I don't know what it is. I mean, people have seen a whole different side of Tom Brady since joining the Bucs. Gronk's always been Gronk, but still, he did quite well. So there's a Tampa Bay effect. I'm going to stand firmly in that, but I agree. I think coming here at 32 years old, he's definitely not impressed with what he did with the Giants last season. And Minnesota was on a bit of a tear where they started gradually progressing. They were, sitting top of their division for a minute there, and then things fell apart. But in terms of the time that Minnesota was really producing, and the only reason I keep touching back to that is because, like I said, his season with the Giants, he didn't even break 300 yards. He had one touchdown. He wasn't even looked at, very, very little considered in the system. But in 2016 and 2016 was his best season. He's never broken 1,000 yards, but he's gotten quite close. He ranked for 7 touchdowns in 2016, 8 touchdowns in 2017. In 2017, the top target for the Minnesota Vikings was Adam Thielen with over 1,200 yards. Now, depending on who your quarterback is, they can either spread the ball around many offensive weapons, or they kind of lock into their key guy. And if I just happened to have watched a lot of Vikings football at that time, and happened to at that time. And if Thielen was open, it was going to Thielen, and that was the bottom line. That was the end of it. And they, of course, were heavily trying to get Dalvin Cook involved when he was healthy. So Kyle Rudolph was the red zone guy. Kyle Rudolph was the underneath guy. He hasn't had a system where you have a quarterback that's really going to equally or try to equally distribute that ball across multiple weapons. So the exciting part with this is that not only it being Tom Brady, but it being somebody who's really going to look for that guy in that moment. And you guys have to think about it. Would you trust Kyle Rudolph in a particular situation, or is it going to come down to Cameron Brate? And Kyle Rudolph has been in a lot more high pressure positions between the seasons of 2016 to 2018 with the Vikings.
I hear you, and that's a good point there. It does become a little bit interesting. I'm very curious to watch the Bucs offense this season for multiple reasons, of course. Yes. But let's remember the type of offense that the Bucs had with Bruce, who again no longer the coach, but Byron Leftwich, of course. Mm-hmm. Before Brady and Gronk got there, and you can kind of chart this back to their Arizona days as well, in their first year here with the Bucs in 2019. It wasn't predominantly tight end heavy. Now, of course, that's different when you bring in Brady and Gronk, and they are two of the greatest players at their position, but also playing together for so long. They have all that chemistry and everything like that. So Gronk was a big part of the offense, especially last season. I think in 2020, it definitely took him a lot of time to get it rolling, but he had a whole year off. And I think last year you really saw, and the postseason in 2020 and then into 2021, up until Gronk's injury, you really saw the benefit of how great Gronk could be. But Gronk's not here anymore, so we don't have to spend all that time on it. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was not a ton of usage in terms of just actually receiving the ball and going down the field at the tight end position. Right. Obviously, Cam Brate being a receiving type of tight end, we'll see how much he's utilized in the passing game and who's going to be that blocking tight end. Or are they really going to mix and match with Kyle Rudolph now in here, and Cade Otton. Those are more question marks that we'll probably get an answer, I would imagine, by the time the preseason is done. But on today, Thursday, July 21st, we can't totally give you that answer. But it is intriguing, just the usage of the tight end position from the Bucs from the 2019 season compared to the last 2 years. I think it's going to be vastly different.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And I think you made a great point there. You're not going to bring in a Rob Gronkowski and not utilize him, especially to the ability that you watched him produce in New England. So, and I mean, again, that circles back to the whole, some of the people that are like, why Rudolph, or asking why it wasn't Ebron or Cook or anything else.
Yeah.
Kyle Rudolph probably is one of the better blockers out of that, like out of the free agent tight ends as a whole. Number one. Number two, he doesn't have massive amount of drop under his belt, and his frame, it just really comes down to the fact that this is a 6'6", 265 guy. And I think he would be, you know, a good mentor for a guy like Cade Otton, who 6'5", 247, needs to put on some muscle, needs to work on his strength and stuff. So, you know, it balances out in many ways. And I just think that this system, these coaches, and this quarterback can maybe just kind of revive, like you said, just give him a different opportunity in his career. And it just kind of makes you think too, like, what would Gronk's stats be if he didn't have Tom Brady as his quarterback for basically his entire career, his whole career, right?
I have wondered that before. Like, what if Gronk played with another quarterback for like a long period of time? Of course, he caught a touchdown pass from Blaine Gabbert. Let's not forget about that. We have to put in at least one Blaine Gabbert reference on the show. But yeah, Gronk's entire career was with Tom Brady. You mentioned the frame of Kyle Rudolph. Mm-hmm. The tight end position, it's going to be big guys anyways. That means like they're working out, they're lifting, probably having a lot of protein. If you want a good protein bar, the best one to have is the Fast Brand protein bar, which of course is a product of Celsius, which is the main sponsor of our podcast here, the Pewter Report podcast. And these Fast Brand bars are delicious. They taste like candy bars. You got the white chocolate cookies and cream, and of course the peanut caramel crunch. 20 grams of protein. So we're talking about a lot of protein packed into those bars. They're a great substitute in the case of you forget to have breakfast and you're in a rush. Just have one real quick. You'll be good to go until lunchtime. You want to work out, but you don't want to have too full of a stomach? Bam, have that Celsius Fast Brand bar. Also, a great substitute for dessert as well. Don't have that ice cream, just have the Fast Brand bar. Or heat it up a little bit, put it in your ice cream, and just make your dessert experience that much better. Make sure you go to Amazon.com and order the Fast Brand bars. You can set them up for every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever you want. But you are getting a fantastic bar that doesn't crumble in your hands like other ones, and you can take it on the go anywhere you need to be. So that's Celsius Fast Brands, and I'll show everyone the bars that I got here: the white chocolate cookies and cream and the salted peanut crunch. So make sure you go and get them. They absolutely are delicious. I want to talk a little bit about the last season that Kyle Rudolph had, and you mentioned some of the stats before. He played in 16 games, so he played in all but one game. Had 26 receptions for 257 yards and 1 touchdown. So as I mentioned before, I reached out to a couple of my friends that were that are Giants fans and watch every single game. So want to give a shout out to my buddy George Sinecor and my buddy as well, Kevin Gallo. Appreciate you guys for the insight. I miss you guys. Hope to see you soon. They said he was coming off an injury when he played with the Giants last year, so he did look a little slow. I feel like he was signed to be a red zone threat, but the Giants were barely productive in the red zone. Pretty sure he was also signed to be a blocking tight end, since Evan Ingram, the other tight end of the Giants, is underwhelming at that. So kind of brought in a little bit to do both. Another response was he's definitely still a red zone threat, no matter how washed up he might be. So he thinks he's a little washed up. Remains to be seen. We'll see for training camp. His best years are definitely behind him with the Vikings, but Giants fans are mostly just happy that they didn't have to see Stonehands Ingram at tight end anymore. So a lot of Evan Ingram.
A lot of digs at Ingram.
Yeah. They weren't too happy with him. But I think
I like your friends because that Ingram's not a real tight end. I don't even know why.
Yeah, he's more of that like receiving type of tight end.
No, it's that garbage new hybrid tight end that came out in like 2018. Stop it. Tight ends are big guys that are versatile. They block, they catch, and then whatever. But I've had that. I've gone to nauseum saying that to John Beard on every podcast that I got a chance to do so. So yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting, especially the point too that so he had a foot injury his last year in Minnesota. So in 2020, where he was out. I think he got injured in week 13, so he missed like the rest of that season. So I think it is important to point out that he was maybe a little bit slower to begin the year. And then I think my friends make a great point. Just the Giants were abysmal, like across the board on offense. Like they need to figure out what's going on with Daniel Jones. Obviously, Saquon got hurt a lot, and still trying to work out things with like Kadarius Toney, one of their weapon type of offensive players that could do a little bit of everything. So Rudolph as a red zone guy, that's intriguing, but also that's Cam Brate's here. So I think Cam Brate's going to do a lot of that. But the fact that he was out there for the blocking plays is where we're going to see a little bit more of Rudolph. Because if Brate's in the game, it does seem like, oh, okay, maybe they're more inclined to pass here because that's what Cam Brate does. But you get to that goal line situation, all right, line up Brate and Rudolph and see what you can get from there. I just like the fact that Rudolph, and this is why I kind of preferred him, even though he went to Notre Dame, and I'm not a fan of that school. Just in terms of the well-rounded tight end, being able to do a little bit of both, maybe not fantastic, especially at this point of his career, but the more leveled out, evened out type of tight end doing both and not just specializing in one, I think is exactly what Tampa Bay was looking for.
Yeah, it's definitely a good enough situation. Like, I would say Bucs fans have a reason to be happy that it's not going to come down to Cameron Brate all the time. And then the rookies really pulling it together rapidly. Is he the best catcher out there? No. Is he a massive dropper? No. Does he have stability and sturdiness in his hands when he does get a hold of the ball? Yeah. And it all comes back to the fact that we're talking about a guy who was, 11 seasons and 475 receptions. He wasn't really heavily relied on. So we can really pick apart how good he is or is not. But this is somebody whose opportunities have been, I don't want to say limited, a couple seasons where they really gave it to him. And I think he did well with those opportunities. I broke down the stats a little bit earlier. So if he can, if he comes in healthy, comes in motivated, which I'm sure he will, I think your friends made a great point as to the red zone portion of it. He has been reliable in the red zone. If there's a consistency that Kyle Rudolph has had, it's been his ability to show up for his team in the red zone. And when it comes down to it, that's where you really want your player, is getting you touchdowns and loading up the scoreboard for you. So they're going to be able to have a nice little touch and go between him and Cameron Brate, I believe. Especially those plays where they are going to have to pull in Rudolph to block, but then they can alleviate Brate to catch. And I think that it can give them some creative opportunities on the field and plays and stuff. But it's going to come back to the fact that he's a veteran presence, playing under a guy who's all about having a veteran presence on his team and what he can teach and help with the other guys. Because as we've talked about with the rookies, Otton is one kind of tight end and Kieft is a whole nother different kind. He's probably predominantly going to stay in that blocking stance where Otton likes to go out for passes and stuff. He struggles a little bit on the strong side.
Yeah, agreed. And just want to give a shout out here to Leo. Thank you so much for the $5 chat. And anyone that wants to give us a super chat, we will make sure that we get to your question or comment or concern, whatever it may be, as soon as we can. So, Leo, thank you again for the $5 super chat. He says, Kyle Rudolph has had abysmal QBs. Brady will make him great again. We already talked about this, just the disparaging differences in, the quarterbacks that Rudolph has worked with and now working with Tom Brady. And we saw Brady working with multiple different people in minicamp. So, he's getting some reps in with other players. It wasn't just Cam Brate out there. So we will see how it goes there. I do want to transition a little bit to Cade Otton here. But before that, if we just look at the entire depth chart, Kasey, obviously Cam Brate's number one. We don't really have to get too much into detail on that. I'm very curious whether, and it'll play itself out, going into camp, whether Rudolph will already be the number 2 tight end just for the fact that he's a veteran. He's been in this league. And I think it's even added on top of that because of the fact that Cade Otton is coming back from that ankle injury and hasn't participated at all. Again, the Bucs understood this when they drafted him, that he was, rehabbing from that injury.
Yeah.
But it seems a little crazy I shouldn't say crazy, but it would seem a little odd if you're going to have a rookie tight end that hasn't practiced at all in rookie minicamp, in OTAs, and Bucs minicamp to all of a sudden come in and be the number 2 tight end. And especially because, he was a late round pick. He wasn't, if he was a first round pick, sure, I get it. I understand the talent there, but he wasn't even, he was a later round pick. So I don't think that's really going to be the situation. I'm just curious what you think about it too.
Yeah, I think you laid it out well. I mean, the bottom line is he hasn't participated in anything. He was a 4th round pick, and he's coming off of an ankle injury that they have to assess and see, where his progress is going to be throughout training camp. So I think training camp for Otton is going to be, progression. What does he look like? How does he start getting established? Now he can actually follow through on the things that he's reading in a playbook, and they have to measure that. That's going to take some time. I think It would be pretty insane to have him come in at, tight end number 2 versus a seasoned veteran who, if there's translatable things in the playbook from the Bucs to the systems that he's been a part of, he's going to be able to execute a lot faster than somebody who's playing catch up and now putting the physicality to what he's been reading, hopefully studying over the last few months. I will say that in terms of what he did over at Washington, his production, he comes from a huge football family, uncles, dads, people who have been really, embedded in the football culture and played, very well. Those guys kind of have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I'm not going to lie. So do I have hope? And of course, as always, high expectations for Cade Otton. Absolutely. He's supposed to be, very, very savvy when it comes to his football IQ. He's supposed to be a smart route runner. He has a lot of positives that stack under his belt. So training camp's going to be a big tell in terms of, is he really as good as everybody was hoping? Because they were also saying it was a bit of a steal to grab him in round 4. So I think he's coming in with a decent amount of pressure on his shoulders, but I don't see him coming in at tight end position 2. I think it's an easy handoff to the vet while he develops, while he gets his feet underneath him, and while he has that time to be assessed coming off of that injury.
Yeah, really good points there. I think Otton, in my opinion, I think Otton has the potential to eventually be the number 2, and maybe in a season or 2 from now, the number 1 tight end. It's just a matter of you have to get on the field. I did want to get to some comments here from the fans. Pat Riley said, Rudolph has limited value at his current age. Hopefully he will play smart, if not fast. Yeah, they always say play smarter, not harder. And I think he'll be on a pitch count as well. It's not like he's going to be playing all the time. Tony says Brate could be phased out if Otton develops. I don't think he'll be phased out this season, but I think in a year from now, he could end up being the number 2 type of tight end, kind of what I was saying with my last comment. Callie Bucks says, I don't see Otton stepping up his rookie season. Remains to be seen. First thing, you have to get on the field. But you do make some very compelling cases, too, with, how much is he going to be lining up on the line of scrimmage? How much will he actually be lining up outside? And not as a wide receiver, but we have seen tight ends line up a little bit outside. Again, for me, it just goes back to the amount of usage. Because as you're talking about with Rudolph, and I know we want to transition to Otton here, but you have Mike and Chris, and you have Russell Gage, you have some of these great, receivers that are some of the best in the league. How much are you really going to need a receiving tight end? I just don't see it as much as other teams. They don't have to rely on their tight end to get open. They just need to make sure that they block. Like, I'd almost rather have a tight end, and whether that's Rudolph or whoever, I'd rather have a tight end helping out like with pass blocking. Not that Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith really need it that much, but just to get Brady a little bit more protection. I have no doubts about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Russell Gage getting open. It's just a matter of keeping Brady protected. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth with this tight end position and what's going to go on there.
Yeah, there really are a lot of question marks in the air when it comes to it. I will say this. Everyone in the chat who's kind of going nuts about the fact that, Kyle Rudolph is quote unquote too old and washed up. He's a year younger than Gronk. So as we previously
Great point.
As we previously mentioned in the podcast earlier, Gronk has overcome a lot of injuries. He's put his body through so much. But on top of it, Gronk also had one of the greatest quarterbacks as his quarterback for his entire career. So while, yes, Kyle Rudolph isn't the most stellar tight end, if you look at an average or, a little above average tight end, not Gronk, but, somebody a notch or two below Gronk, Kyle Rudolph can compete, and he's 32 years old. He's going to be 33 in November. He's not over the hill. We have a 45-year-old coming up, 45-year-old birthday coming up for a quarterback. So it's really going to come down to the fact of where his health is at. Athletes are actually expected to have a little bit more longevity these days because science and the medical field and everything has changed. So if Rudolph is taking care of his body and he can get acclimated in this system, he really can be beneficial in many ways, starting with blocking, starting with the red zone, and kind of being more of an opportunity in the middle of the field like they were using Gronk in those tight positions. Being that last minute go-to guy if all of your wide receivers are locked in and the run game's just not panning out that day. He is a quality option for the price, for the size, and for what the Bucs need right here, right now. The other thing that popped up, besides everybody thinking that Kyle Rudolph's like this 57-year-old tight end coming out of retirement, is I don't think Otton's going to be a factor this season. I think it's a great training ground for him, but we have seen within the Bucs system that sometimes that rookie number gets called when you least expect it, and there's an expectation there. And the rookies that have showed up for Bucs training camp that have been a part of this Bucs roster for the last 2-3 years, they've been quality rookies. They have ended up being, nice surprises. So does Cade Otton have an ability to be a nice surprise? I think so. And I wasn't even a fan of him being drafted. I didn't even
really.
Yeah.
Why weren't you a fan?
Well, I was more on the McBride train.
Oh, yeah. I love Trey McBride. I thought he was great, but he was already off the board by then. I hear you, though.
Yeah.
The Bucs, it's curious, too, because if the Bucs knew that Gronk was going to be totally retired, I wonder, oh, man, this is a butterfly effect type of thing, but I wonder if they knew that Gronk wasn't going to be back, would they have pursued a tight end a little bit earlier, like when Trey McBride went? We'll never know, and there's no reason to really dwell on it because the Bucs still have a very stacked roster.
Food for thought.
Yes, food for thought. Great point. And Cade Otton, he could end up being like an absolute steal, an absolute gem. I mean, not many people are too aware of him right now, again, because of the ankle injury. And one more time, Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times had reported earlier today that Cade Otton has been cleared to participate in training camp. So we will see him on Wednesday. But because not as many people know him, it would not be a bad idea to draft him in your Underdog fantasy draft. Of course, you got Best Ball Mania 3 still going on, which is one of the funnest things that you can get involved in. There's $10 million in prizes, people. You don't even have to come in first place. You can still pick up that money. Their Best Ball 3 tournament, $10 million. And the best part is you just draft your fantasy football team, and that's it. No waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog Fantasy. It gives you your best score each week of the season, and the highest score at the end of the year wins. And the earlier you draft, the better, because you can pick up the best kept secrets. Maybe that is Cade Otton. Later in August and before the season starts, all those secrets are out because you see everyone performing. So start picking them now. I also want to tell you about the Pick'em script itself, the Pick'em tournaments that they got going on. You just pick an over and under on your favorite or least favorite player stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. They keep it super simple at Underdog Fantasy with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your Pick'em slip. Get every pick right and take home some cold, hard cash. You can do that with football right around the corner. You can do that with baseball, which I believe picks up today. They just had the All-Star game. the other day, where Shane McClanahan was the starter for the American League team. Underdog also has a lot of other cool things going on. You can get in the Puppy 2, which is a tournament-style event for fantasy football. It's $5 to enter, and first place gets $75,000. There's $500,000 in total prizes, so a lot of money to go out there. And the cool thing, like I said, it's a tournament style. So you got to get through the first bracket to get to the next bracket, and there's 4 brackets in total, and the winner gets that $75K. Another fun part of it is you could choose whether to do a fast draft or a slow draft. If you just want to be like, all right, I want my players, I want them now. Bam, get a part of that fast draft. If you want a slow draft, you want to look up some last-second stats, see who their opponents are, see what the defenses that they're playing against, how good they are. Use the slow draft. Take your time. That's all good. They also have the Pup Cup, which is a golf tournament that will end on August 8th. So make sure you sign up for that. They have a PGA draft tournament for the FedEx Cup, a very fun event towards the end of the year. That's another $5 entry and $100,000 in total prizes. That's a 3-round tournament as well. So again, go to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code Pewter. You could be winning money left and right. Just depends on what tournament you want to do. And Pewter Report will have our own little leagues and groups on Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code Pewter. Win some cold hard cash. I think we could all use it, unless you're a pro athlete. I mean, who doesn't want to win money? It's awesome.
I would like to win some money. I am just terrified, but I'm feeling lucky.
If only it was St. Patty's Day, which St. Patty's Day, great day in general. Everyone's Irish on St. Patty's Day. And it was also the day that Tom Brady signed his contract with the Bucs. So even more meaningful in Tampa.
Everybody's Irish. I love that.
It is.
My dad would be so upset to hear that.
Why?
Really offended. Because as a descendant of someone from Northern Ireland, everybody is not Irish.
Well, my grandma was born in Ireland. So, I'll get her opinion on that too. I'll get back to you when we're on the show again next time. Let's talk a little bit more about the tight end position. We obviously talked a lot about Kyle Rudolph. We talked a lot about Cade Otton. There's other players in the tight end room. Cam Brate, as we mentioned, the other rookie, Kieft, and, of course, Cody McElroy, who's been on the team for a couple of seasons now, has played in less than, 5 games. I can count it on my hand.
Yeah,
the amount of games that he's really played in. Obviously, it's going to be a competition for how many make the 53-man roster. Will the Bucs keep 3? Will they keep 4? Kieft, I would imagine, if he doesn't make the 53-man roster, will at least be on the practice squad. But McElroy is a guy that's been around. He's had some flashes, not necessarily in game, but in training camp. Yeah. I'm just wondering the outlook of this team, whether or not they would keep 3 or 4 tight ends. Because I don't know Kieft, as much as we all enjoy him already for the type of looks that he has, the Chief Keef nickname, that people can go, Kieft, if he makes a play. If he were to go on the practice squad, I don't necessarily see him as a guy that another team would pluck him off the practice squad and bring him up to their roster. But it will be interesting to see how that all plays out. And obviously we have a whole month of training camp to figure that out. But at the end of the day, it should be, as you said, an exciting event and competition between tight ends 3, 4, and 5, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the brand opportunity that came to with Kieft, I definitely see him more as a practice squad guy in the meantime, because they're clearly not looking for a predominant blocker, and he still obviously, as a rookie, needs to see how he translates to that NFL speed. The other guy, he's just very underwhelming for me. And when you look at the Bucs system, it really comes down to the fact that they're not a tight end heavy system, so they don't really need to try to utilize 4 tight ends unless somebody's health is in question. And regardless of everybody's opinions, I think the reality of the Kyle Rudolph versus Cameron Brate discussion is the fact that Kyle Rudolph has the ability to catch as well as block, where Cameron Brate is often referred to as a receiving tight end. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Rudolph ends up beating Brate out for that tight end 1 position, just because of the system that also all ties into the fact that we have discussed another thing ad nauseum. The Bucs want to run the ball more this season. Yep. So who's going to be the better fit for that opportunity to actually make that pan out, so that when they run the ball on first downs 10,000 times, it can be more successful than nauseating. So it really just comes down to the fact that I think, and we trust Jason Licht, we trust this coaching staff. I think it was more appealing in that aspect. So I could see them probably having 3 tight ends on the roster, Rudolph, Brate, and then, the guy who just pops in whenever somebody's extremely hurt, and moving on from there. Now, if they ran a lot more 12 personnel like I've been begging for, it would be a whole different conversation.
Now, I'm fine with the Bucs running the ball. My issue is the Bucs were extremely predictable running the ball, where it would be first down, and they would just run it essentially like up the middle or in between the guard and the tackle. One of the most interesting games really was, when they started to mix it up a little bit and start running sweeps. And they did that towards the end of the year, against Carolina. It was more of a blowout game. But hey, Scotty Miller got an end
Love
around.
the sweeps.
I don't mind if the Bucs want to run the ball more. I think it would behoove the Bucs to do so, especially with Brady. Not that Brady has lost a step, but the less that he has to pass the ball, the more that he's going to be healthy, and that's less of a risk there. So I think it's more of just the diversity of running the ball, not just the variety of running it too, not just going, right up the middle. But let me ask you, because I asked Scott this the other day, and Scott's a little more old school, and I agree. I kind of take his side more of it than. Let's start with our former colleague that we miss very much, John Ledyard, and Paul Atwell, who will be on for the Pewter Game Day shows. They hate running the ball. If they could have it their way, they would pass it 100 times and not have to run the ball unless they're taking a knee at the end of the game.
Right.
Scott isn't the type of person that's like, no, you have to run it like all the time. We're going to run the ball and play defense, and that's it. Like, we understand it's it's a passing league now, just the way that NFL is today. I still think there is room to run the ball in today's NFL. It's just you have to do it effectively. It doesn't have to be 50-50. It's probably going to be 70-30. But when you do run the ball, damn it, make it good and make it creative. Don't just keep getting predictable, because that was a little bit of an issue. As great as the Bucs offense was, and they do a lot of great things, predictability was some of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was like the whole issue. If you guys know, I stress about gambling, but if I wanted to make a bet on something and feel good about it, it would be when the Bucs were going to run the ball and how often. So the predictability worked against them tremendously. I'm kind of sitting on the fence on this one. No offense, JC, but I'm pulling a JC. I can really talk to both sides of this, running the ball and having an effective defense versus, throwing the ball. It kind of comes down to an entertainment thing, though. What is more entertaining sometimes? We don't really have running backs that are all that as strong as they used to be. Also, back in the day, you had running backs and then you had fullbacks. You had these just big guys that could just bear down and like bullet through people. And it's not as cute today, which if you see somebody passing the ball and it's, this massive throw over 20 yards, just looks good. It electrifies the stadium. It's kind of an entertainment thing in my perspective. So if I had to go with what feels more entertaining, what's more inviting, what I like to see more of, it's got to be the passing game. But I do feel like there needs to be more of a run game. I agree with you. There is room for more running back action in this league for sure. But I just think it's prettier. I think people just enjoy watching good passes go down. And the other side of it, people like to see big defensive plays. So when the ball in the air, there's a lot of opportunity for defense to have that spot or for offense to embarrass them. So it's more of an entertainment for me versus why.
Like an actual X's and O's philosophy thing. I'm talking in terms of like you winning the game. Not just like, and at the end of the day, if you win, like that's fun. So it doesn't really matter how you do it. But I still think there has to be, running, you have to have a good run game in this league to win, and that
Yeah.
was an issue for the Bucs going up against the Rams. You know, they didn't run the ball well. Obviously, another big storyline of this training camp is Leonard Fournette and the weight saga, I guess.
Y'all leave Lenny alone.
Well, listen, there are some very funny comments right now that I don't necessarily. I think they're funny, but what I want to say is I'm not worried about Leonard Fournette going into training camp. We spoke to Donovan Smith, and he's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, he's working out right now. Leonard Fournette has posted videos, but, you know, you see stuff like Lunchables Lenny, Buffet Line Lenny, going on our St. Patrick's Day, Plenty O Lenny. Like, listen, be nice to Lenny. There's another one. I won't put it in there, but Pat Riley, you had another good one. Be nice to Lenny, all right? Because
Riley's on fire.
Lenny's won a Super Bowl for you guys. He's done a lot of great things for this team. He really stepped it up, especially when Chris Godwin got injured, and you know it was Leonard Fournette making all those receptions, doing big things for the Bucs, playing injured. Let's remember, like Leonard Fournette was pretty injured going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, you know, he scored that touchdown to tie it up against the Rams. So be nice to Leonard Fournette. He's done a lot of great things for the Bucs. He doesn't deserve this criticism that's going on there. But
just a little perspective, too, for somebody who comes from a fitness background, is that Lenny did put on a decent amount of weight last year heading into last season, number one, while he was trying to do contract negotiations as well. And we're talking about a guy that's not, you know, an idiot here. But there is this thing, guys, called bulking and cutting. There are certain timelines with it. So if you look at his workout videos and the plates that he has on it and the method to the math behind it, if he bulked up to a 260 and is trying to cut down to 245, he's going to be a really strong 245. He's never the fastest guy in the game, but if he has a little bit more strength to him and a little bit more grit on the field, that might be the angle of play that that's his goal this year. So bulking and cutting is a thing, depending on what your goal is and what you're up to. So the plates that he's moving at the size that he's at, you can definitely see that he's got a plan, I hope. And he's alluded to this plan multiple times with his one-line tweets that we all love to see. So y'all leave Lenny alone. I'm sure he wouldn't jeopardize a 3-year contract. You know,
exactly. At the end of the day, like funny is funny. So if you make a good comment, like I'll give you a tip of the cap. All I'm saying is Leonard Fournette has earned the benefit of the doubt, where we should trust him to go and get in shape for training camp. I really
guarantee you this is a bulking cut.
Yeah, I guarantee after maybe not the first day, but the first couple of practices, this will be a non-story. I'd be like, all right, like he looks good again. He's fine. Like if Leonard Fournette rushes 80 yards and scores a touchdown on the first day of practice, or takes a swing pass, or takes a screen and jukes defenders and everything like that. The first couple of practices, they're not in shoulder pads and everything like that. But if he makes plays and looks athletic and everything like that, this won't really be an issue at all.
Either,
I'm sorry?
I said, and not completely gassed either, because typically when people see weight gain, they're like, oh my gosh, they're not going to keep up here. But again, depending on the strategy, if there was strategy behind the weight gain, his lung capacity is going to be fine. He's just got to shred up.
Want to give a shout out to Matthew. Great name, dude. Love it. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Matthew. He said, Vikes QBs, Brett Favre, Christian Ponder, with two. I guess Ponder started twice, or two separate occasions as being the starter. Matt Castle, Teddy Bridgewater twice, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins, his first 2 years there. Give him a break and see. Wait, what? Was that the case in his rookie year? Or his first 2 years? All of those different quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's it. He had like a carousel of quarterbacks. It was a hot mess.
Damn, I did not realize that. I mean, he's been in the league for a little while now, but I did not realize, carousel with a capital C, carousel. Like, damn, that is pretty far out there.
And logistically, you have to remember, like, there's a a learning curve here with the chemistry that a guy needs to build with his quarterback. So who knows what that chemistry, what that learning curve was with some of these guys? Like, come on, look at the names you're reading here.
I know.
Bradford.
Yeah.
What is Bradford doing these days? Nobody knows.
Collecting his money. I mean, he got the last, I think, one of the last big like rookie contracts. Remember in the NFL like years ago, first round picks would get these insane amount of money before they even did anything in the NFL, and then you would get guys that unfortunately would be busts, and then the NFL and everyone that makes those decisions were like, okay, maybe we shouldn't give these unproven players like all this guaranteed money and these huge contracts that not every single person is going to live up to. The other side of the coin, though, and again, thank you, Matthew, for the $5 super chat. Honestly, when I see the name Matthew, and that's my name too, but one of the other first things I think about is one, Matthew McConaughey, and two, I think of the Eminem song "Stan." When he's like, "You could have signed an autograph for my brother, Matt. You could have signed an autograph for Matthew. That's my little brother, man. He's only 6 years old. He waited blistering cold for you for 4 hours, and you just said no." Anyway, anytime I see that like on print, I think of it. It has nothing to do with this conversation.
We should have you drop a bar at the end of every podcast. I feel really confident in what you could do with the podcast title, subject, and the closeout.
I honestly, it would be fun a couple of times, and then I'd just be like I don't have anything to write about today or
no
do
bars
whatever.
Today.
Yeah. But I do think he clearly the list here is pretty wild, but that was also in 2011 and 2012. So we're not getting that type of Kyle Rudolph, which I think has to be taken into account. Like, I don't really care what Kyle Rudolph did in 2014. It doesn't really matter to, 2022. It's not the same type of tight end at all. It's kind of like when the Bucs got Le'Veon Bell, it'd be silly at the time if people were like, oh, he's the guy that was the all-pro player. Like, he's clearly a different player.
Yeah.
They get older and things like that happen. It's just not the same. But
if it were me and I was coming into a new team, coming off of a slumpy year, and there's a 45-year-old guy on the roster, I would live in the gym and in the playbook room and in the a 45-year-old can't be like healthier than me. I know that sounds so rude.
No, you're absolutely right, and I'll tell you why. Because I like to play a couple of different sports, and one of them is pickleball. And if I'm playing against someone that is like way older than me, I'm like, I can't lose this freaking guy. Are you kidding me? Or like I'll play against my dad. I'm like, my dad's in his 60s. I should not be losing to this guy. And it's there is something about that. I was listening to a podcast before, and Ray Romano was talking, the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond, and he was saying he does the celebrity golf event, and his goal is like he wants to beat some of the people, obviously. But he's like, his measuring stick essentially is Charles Barkley. For those that don't know, Charles Barkley used to be a good golfer and then just completely lost it. Now he's a really bad golfer. So Ray Romano's goal every year in the celebrity tournament is to go and make sure he beats Charles Barkley, because like you got to at least do that. Those are his words, not necessarily mine.
Measure. So for all the players that are not who they used to be, all right, well, when you join Tom Brady's team, you better be better than who you used to be, because he's 45 years old and his health is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I also think, though, Brady is the one exception to the rule. There's always that exception to the rule. He is Benjamin Button in a sense. He's had arguably three Hall of Fame careers all in one career. Like if you go to his first couple of Super Bowls, then my buddy was telling me about this because he's a big Patriots fan. He was like, if you take the first couple of years when he won 3 Super Bowls, the times he wasn't winning the Super Bowls is when he was winning the MVPs and everything. Then he went on the second dynasty with New England, and then he goes to the Bucs and he wins the Super Bowl. So he has multiple Hall of Fame careers all meshed into one career that spanned however long it's been now, 2 decades, whatever it is. It's honestly, it's insane, and it doesn't really make much sense. And if you wanted to see what Tom Brady's going to do next and potentially bet on the amount of touchdowns he's going to have this season, the best place to go and do that would be with none other than mybookie.ag. As you see on the screen there, they will give you a welcome bonus if you use the promo code PEWTER. They will match it up to $1,000. So they'll match it halfway. And football's right around the corner, but we still got sports going on right now. As I said, baseball's coming back. There's a big UFC fight this Saturday. There's golf events going on. And, of course, with baseball, you know, the whole season can feel like a grind to watch, but you can put the excitement back in each and every game with MyBookie. There's run lines, money lines, first inning, no runs, the best bet in all sports, and props galore. Nobody gives you more opportunities to win than MyBookie. Getting started is simple. Deposit up to $1,000. Play with $500 free instantly. Just use that promo code PEWTER. Whether you're a diehard fan or a newcomer to the sport, there's never been a better time to join the MyBookie family. Go ahead, sign up today using promo code PEWTER for your first deposit bonus up to $1,000 with MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Bet on the Mets. Bet on the Rays. They're pretty good when McClanahan's on the mound, and I think they've been playing better. So, yeah, go and bet on the Rays. I'm not sure if they play tonight. I know the Mets play tomorrow. But if the Rays play today, go and bet on the Rays. If they play tomorrow, bet on them then, because hopefully they'll have a better second half.
I will say the Rays have become the legal parent of the Red Sox, and that is good enough for me.
Very good. Very good.
All the posts about the children eat free and everyone's like, I'm so sorry for the starving children in Boston. I'm like, I shouldn't laugh at this as hard as I'm laughing at it, but yeah, the Rays are bet worthy. Have at it.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not dissing Boston here, but after all the titles that they won with the Patriots, the Red Sox have won a bunch, the Bruins won a couple years ago.
They're done.
I will never feel bad for a Boston fan when their team doesn't win the championship. I don't feel bad at all that the Warriors beat the Celtics and Steph Curry was clowning the Celtics last night at the ESPYs. By the way, the ESPYs, huge shout out to Dick Vitale. He won the Jimmy V Award. I would recommend everyone that's watching and listening go and check it out. His story is incredible. He's obviously fighting through cancer. He's raised $55 million for pediatric cancer, raised even more than that for the Jimmy V Fund. I would recommend checking it out. He had a great line at the end. I don't remember it verbatim, but it was a great line where he said, if you have perseverance, passion, and pride, perseverance plus passion plus pride equals winning in life. And I think if all of us try to live with the enthusiasm that Dickie V has and he brings every single day to his life, I think you'll live a great life as well. So I just wanted to mention that real quick with Dickie V because it really was inspirational, and I would recommend that. I'm not sure if he still has cancer. I think he beat it, right? His cancer's in remission right now.
Yeah, he's supposed to be in remission. He rang the bell about 3 months ago. So it was the fact of him getting his voice back and healing from those surgeries and stuff. But I mean, geez, if you think you're having issues and you listen to that, it motivates you to prevail through those issues, whatever it may be. But brilliant speech.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad.
My roommate walks in and she's like, "What's going on?" And I just point to the TV.
I'm glad that he beat cancer, and I'm so glad that he got through his vocal cord injury because he sounded just like the Dickie V before he got sick and everything.
So much gusto, and it's just one of the voices that you can just listen to and. Yeah.
Awesome, baby, with a capital A. Yeah, it truly is awesome, and I totally mean that. So everyone, please go and check that out. Kasey, as we wrap this up here, I saw some people in the comments talking about concern about a third pass rusher. Obviously, the two edge rushers, Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. They got Anthony Nelson there as a third string pass rusher. I feel pretty good about him as a backup. I don't know how you feel, but Anthony Nelson, as a third string outside linebacker, I feel pretty good about. What say you?
I was impressed with him last season. If you really think about it, the way that the chips unfold and when these guys had to step up and have that next man up mentality, he didn't crumble. He performed. And so I think that high volumes, not, nothing crazy, but I think that speaks high volumes on his end. So I'm actually quite enthusiastic about what Anthony Nelson can do this coming season. And for a guy who's been underestimated, and for people who thought that he was really never going to make a name for himself in the league, and so on and so forth, to come off of a career high season, to perform under the pressure that he was placed under, I think he's going to be a reliable guy. I think he's going to build off of last season. I think we're at least going to see some solid consistency from him, which is what, one of the simplest things you can ask for from a player. So I think Anthony Nelson will do great.
I agree with you. I think he's coming off his career best in sacks. He's in a contract year this year, so obviously that's motivating to a lot of players. I think it'll be the same for him. If the Bucs want to bring in another veteran edge rusher, I'm fine with that. But I still think Nelson should be the 3, and the veteran edge rusher can, still get some time. Yeah. It's just let Anthony Nelson do his thing, because he was great in the role that he had.
Let it play out. And I think training camp will be a big factor of that. The energy he brings to training camp will show, what did he do in the offseason to build off the momentum that he applied last season. And I think he's very capable.
Absolutely. And because training camp is starting next week, we are changing around our podcast schedule just a little bit. Don't worry. Every episode will still be at 4 o'clock, so no worries there. But next week, we will be going Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Monday is us just setting the table, talking about the preview for training camp, biggest storylines, all the matchups, everything else in between there. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, training camp's there. We're going to be analyzing it, giving our insight on everything that we saw. I also want to remind you guys to please like and subscribe. Helps us with our algorithm. Get those thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Helps us get our numbers up. We know it's a numbers game. It's all about getting those numbies, as people say. So please do that. Help us out. If you like the show, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And Kasey, thank you so much for joining the show today. Another fantastic job. So for Kasey Hudson, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next week for a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.